That being said, folks, back on the financial crisis element, let me talk about that a bit. Basically, I mentioned in a previous episode, right? I mentioned in a previous episode the Federal Reserve is right now planning to cause unemployment. They're stating this publicly as an agenda. They want to cause unemployment because they say they have to reduce product demand. Think about how frankly nefarious that is. That they again, economies are based on supply and demand. Any kind of free market typically works in that scenario. Prices will go up when demand is higher. Prices will go down typically when demand is lower. Supply is also a big part of it. That sometimes if there's a limited supply, right? If there's limited supply and high demand, you can charge an arm and a leg for it. Like gold is a limited supply, for example, which is why it's valued so much. The rarity of an item will make it more expensive typically. Because they cannot fix the supply issue. They can't fix the gas prices. Biden tried doing a quid pro quo against Saudi Arabia, which we'll go into tomorrow. They cannot get Russia to give more gas. They can't change that. They could technically lift some of the bad policies in the U.S. restricting the oil industry, but like a monkey holding a banana in a box, they will not let that go. They just won't let it go. Biden just has his hand in there. He has that banana of green policy, and he just keeps trying to pull it out. And he finds that unless he lets go of that dang thing, he's not getting his hand out, and he's not letting it go. Because of that, we're now facing a large-scale crisis, a very significant large-scale crisis. And because they refuse to fix that, they're going to be causing intentionally more damage. Rather than fix the supply issue, which they have the capability to do and they're refusing to do it, rather than fix the supply issue, they're going to go after demand. How do you reduce demand? Well, the method they're going for is to make people unable to afford the products. They want to make it so that parts of the country can no longer afford to buy things. That is what it means when they say they're going to reduce demand. And that's what they're saying publicly, interestingly. I mentioned in a previous episode the kind of the details of what the Federal Reserve is doing. And folks, it is happening now. And I will show you now what they're doing. We're entering now a manufactured financial crisis with manufactured mass unemployment. Epoch Times has this story. The Fed expects restrictive policy of higher interest rates for longer. And it's saying the Federal Reserve will eventually slow the pace of interest rates increases as officials assess the cumulative effect of monetary policy adjustments, according to minutes from the September meeting of the Federal Open Market Committee released on October 12th. However, the central bank reiterated its position that the Fed must adopt and maintain a restrictive policy to achieve the chief objective of price stability. Once policy has reached a restrictive level, it will need to be held there for a period. In other words, what they're saying, they're going to keep increasing inflation. They're going to keep raising interest rates, which is going to make inflation, they claim, go down. Ironically, they caused the inflation by sending billions upon billions upon billions of dollars to Ukraine. They increased inflation by doing multi-trillion-dollar spending and bailout packages, which included, for example, pay raises for members of Congress. They spent money like it was going out of style. The Democratic Party and even a lot of establishment Republicans, I guess hypothetically, were in debt and decided to order 20 credit cards and, swipe those credit cards to pay off their debts. And they say, oh, now I'm in more debt. Now I'm in 20 times the amount of debt because now I'm paying interest on 20 credit cards, right? Hypothetically speaking. They spent money by printing money, and they found out that printing money makes you have less money because the value of the money goes down. That's the nature of inflation. If you have one box of Korean ginseng tea, and you say it's worth one gold coin, and then one piece of paper, right? If you equate a piece of paper with the value of this, and then you decide to print two pieces of paper, it means that rather than being worth one piece of paper, it's now worth two pieces of paper, meaning you have to pay double for it. If you keep printing pieces of paper to equate the value of one object, which is how money works, fiat currency, which is what the Federal Reserve does, works, the more money you print, the more it's going to cost for that same object, because you've not changed the number of these things that exist. You've not doubled the number of these. You've merely doubled the currency, the fake currency, the fiat currency. You've doubled the amount that would equate the value of one object. If you double currency, you cut in half the value of a currency. If you double the amount of currency in circulation, if you're dealing with fiat currency, you're reducing by half the actual value of that currency. And by printing money nonstop, that's what they're doing. They're eating away at your savings. The money you have in the bank, when they double the value, when they double the amount of money in circulation, the money you have in the bank is cut in half in value. Many people who are very privy on the way economics work would say that inflation is a hidden tax. They steal your money through inflation. They are robbing you through inflation. And after having robbed you like it was going out of style by rapidly increasing inflation beyond levels that have ever been seen in history, what they've done over the past few years, beyond imagination in terms of how they did this, rather than try to fix the problem and stop sending billions of dollars to other countries, rather than do that, they've done more of that. Rather than do that, they want to go after you. And they want to make it so that not only has your money been reduced in value because of inflation, but they want to make it so that you have less money in general. They want to reduce that. And they want to start charging the government more money and charging more money on interest rates by raising the interest rates. Now, that being said, let me explain this. Now, the Epoch Times reported, of course, that the Federal Reserve, basically what they're doing right now is they're raising interest rates in order to fight inflation. Spending less money would also help fight inflation. In fact, that'd be more of the sustainable way of doing it. Just spend less money. Stop spending money you don't have. One thing I was taught as a kid, which saved me from ever getting into debt, was don't spend money you don't have. Don't spend money if you don't have the money. It's a very simple policy that is one of the best financial advices I've ever been given in my life. Don't spend money if you don't have it. If the U.S. government didn't spend money it didn't have, we would be in a sustainable economic cycle, and we wouldn't be paying interest rates that basically are higher than our GDP. It's insane what they're doing. It's like they don't know how money works. But beyond that, folks, to fix this problem, they're raising interest rates. And the Federal Reserve is now saying they're going to continue raising interest rates. They're not going to stop raising it. We are in both a recession, we're in a recession, and we're in an economic crisis, the likes of which are going to be probably significantly worse than even 2008. We're entering depression level very quickly, very rapidly. And remember, I mentioned they want to cause unemployment as one of the methods of fixing this problem. They want to make people unemployed. Fortune magazine says this. Larry Summers says U.S. has to have a recession that takes unemployment to 6% to beat inflation. 6% unemployment. That means if you have 100 people in a room, 6 of those people are going to lose their jobs. That means if you have a classroom, for example, and let's say there's 50 people, right? A large classroom, there's 50 people. 3 people in the room are going to lose their jobs. And it says this. Summers, who served as Treasury Secretary in the Clinton administration and was director of the National Economic Council under President Barack Obama, told the newspaper that it would be difficult for the U.S. to make its way back toward the Federal Reserve's 2% inflation target without suffering more economic consequences. And he said, I'd be very surprised if we were to simultaneously, as the Fed believes or the Fed forecasts, bring inflation down to something approaching the 2% range, and at the same time see unemployment rise no higher than 4.4%, he said. It continues to be my view that we are unlikely to achieve inflation stability without a recession of a magnitude that would take unemployment towards the 6% range. Asserting this hatred for unemployment, Summers stressed that the question policymakers needed to address was which policy path would bring minimal distress to the labor market. Or you could not flood the country with 5 million illegal aliens who, of course, eat up the jobs and make it so people don't have jobs anyways. That's another possible option. Or, if they want to reduce demand, especially for housing, maybe you don't flood the country with 5 million illegal aliens. That's another possibility, because it's also that's increasing demand, right? If they're talking about, they're saying 175,000 jobs a month. They want to cause the loss of 175,000 jobs a month after they flooded the country with 5 million illegal aliens, all of whom want jobs. And they're putting dead weight on the, of course, tax system as well, because if they have kids, they need to go to school. Biden has them registered. Biden gives them parole, which makes them eligible for welfare and so on. Competition, 5 million. How long is it going to take 175,000 jobs a month to reach that? Couldn't they have just not flooded the country with that to have the same effect? Or just deport people who are here illegally and achieve the same effect? Well, they're not going to do that. Rather than do that, they're going to be manufacturing unemployment on probably at least a 4.4% scale, maybe even a 6% scale, maybe even higher, given the way these forecasts typically work, which is they underestimate rather than overestimate. CNN Business folks said this because, folks, it is already happening. This is already here. This is already happening. This is the reality we are in.